Hi there, you are listening to the Guitar Speak podcast, produced here in Sydney, Australia. My name's Matt Wakeling. Thank you so much for joining me. Today on episode 25, I am so excited to bring you my conversation with Andy Timmons. What a phenomenal player and so well respected all around the world. Before we get to that though, I need to let you know this episode is proudly brought to you by the Michael Dolce 2016 Funk Fusion Masterclass Tour. Michael's awesome. Here's a quick word about those classes.
Hi guys, this is Michael Dolce inviting you to my 2016 Funk Fusion Masterclass Tour. To give you a brief rundown of what the night consists of, we get 10 players in a room in a really relaxed atmosphere, nothing too intimidating. We cover soloing over the one-chord vamp. I will be sharing all my concepts that have worked for me over the years and I still use to this very day. The idea is to show you guys these ideas and apply them to your own voice. If you feel that you know how to play a pentatonic scale and a major scale, that's all you really need. If you're interested in attending the class, you can book through my website at www.michaeldolcemusic.com. So look forward to chatting with you all and hopefully catch you at my next masterclass. Cheers for now, guys.
All right. Michael is such a great player, but more than that, he's a great bloke and a really great teacher. So those classes are so inspiring. So definitely check those out. Now, onto our interview of the day with Andy Timmons. And what a career this guy's had. Playing with bands like Danger Danger, Kip Winger, Simon Phillips, touring as Olivia Newton-John's musical director for many, many years, sessions with Paula Abdul, Paul Stanley from Kiss. Andy's shared the stage with guys like Steve Vai and Satriani, being a regular guest on those G3 tours. Eric Johnson, Mike Stern, Ace Frehley, Paul Gilbert. He's played with some heavy hitters. But underpinning all this stuff has been Andy's own project, the Andy Timmons Band, which has been in existence since around 1988. Andy's now released his 8th solo album, View from a Perfect World, and it's a great record. It's been out just for a few weeks, and it was really exciting to talk to Andy about this album. He's really amalgamating his 60s and 70s influences, all with a very modern Andy Timmons spin on things. The tunes are incredibly written, and the tones are gorgeous, as you would expect. So it was a great thrill to talk to Andy about this and some other stuff. All right, here we go. Here's my conversation with Andy Timmons. Andy Timmons, welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Great to have you. You have just released your 8th solo album, Theme from a Perfect World, and you've just finished up a US tour. How did that go for you?
Ben, it was great. Oddly enough, it was the actual first Andy Timmons Band US tour. We started the band back in 1988, and just as things have kind of rolled, between me doing other bands and other artists and all the other guys in the band having other projects too, we've just kind of been mainly going to Europe and Southeast Asia all these years. And just when we were home, we were just happy to play in the Dallas area and just never really pursued touring domestically. So it was really our first opportunity to do that. And we had a great time. We did 3 weeks kind of putting our toe in the water, so to speak. But great response everywhere we went. Some crowds larger than others, but at the same time, we kind of expected that, having never toured. You kind of got to build it up, so to speak. Sure. No matter what your online presence is, you got to get out there and hit the clubs. So that's what we did, and it really, really went great. So I think we'll be making a regular habit of that, just doing a couple 3 weeks here and there, and see how we can develop from there.
Awesome. I see you closed the tour with a couple of nights at the Iridium in New York. That's got to be a cool venue.
It is. That's kind of been our home. That's one place that we have been playing fairly regularly since 2011. Obviously that was Les Paul's home for many years. And we first were booked up there when the Sgt. Pepper record came out, and it went so well that the people at the club really took a liking to me, and they started bringing me in to sit in with the Les Paul group after Les died. Oh, wow. They continued the tradition for quite a while where, they would use Les's regular backing band, but then bring in guest artists, everybody from Larry Carlton to Eric Johnson, and they had me do it, I think, 3 different times.
Fantastic.
Very obviously, very much an honor to do that. Then they continually, and continue to book the Andy Timmons Band as well. So that's been our New York home. So we had a couple of nights there and 4 shows, and that was a good way to kind of cap off our tour.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, you had like 2 shows each night. That's a pretty long gig for you guys.
It's not bad, it's more like a jazz club setting where they do, hour-long sets, and they clear the house in between the sets. So
Uh-huh.
some people do stay. Some people do stay for both shows, but I dig it because it's like 170 person capacity, so it's pretty intimate.
Ah,
And
cool.
yeah, so I mean, I've always enjoyed playing in those smaller, more compact places for the energy. You really get that feedback from the crowd, and yeah, so we've done really well there. I just love being in New York. I lived there back in the late '80s, early '90s, so
Hmm.
lots of friends. There's just nothing like being in Manhattan.
That's cool. That's great. So the album itself, so you co-produced
Yeah,
that with Mike Darn. Did I pronounce that
yeah.
correct?
Mike Dane, actually,
Dane. Okay.
DAAN. Yeah, Mike and I. He was the original bass player in the Andy Timmons Band, so we've been playing together a long time.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. And so that's a trusted pair of ears if you've been working with him for so long.
That's the key. That's absolutely the key, and he's always been that. He's had that role in the band from day one. He's always a good guy to bounce ideas off of. And but even more so creatively over the years, our relationship has expanded, at least musically, into him being more involved in the recording, engineering part of it, and also the production. So I really wanted to just call him the straight up producer on this record because I really found myself just wanting to let go a bit more of that control
Hmm.
and just letting Mike steer it a little bit more, just to see how it would go. Just to, I usually have a pretty clear vision of what I like and what I'm into, but the more I've grown to respect his ears and his, directive abilities, it was kind of fun for me to let go even more and just to explore somebody getting other elements extracted from me that I might not do left to my own devices.
The album seems to have a similar production aesthetic to your last couple of solo albums or the ATB records.
Yeah, to a degree, I think that the last 2 records were, meaning the Pepper and Resolution records. They were
Yeah. Yeah.
strictly trio. There was no overdubs, and the songs for this record, the theme from A Perfect World record, were definitely composed in the same way. But as Mike and I started digging into the recording, we thought, well, what about a little Wurlitzer on this track, or what about a little rhythm guitar here? We kind of took the handcuffs off a little bit and
Hmm.
said, well, now that we've done the strictly trio, it's nice to give ourselves the toy box back, as it were, and just hopefully tastefully, add to what was already strong about the composition and the arrangement, just to give it a little extra flavor. And again, that after having been through the process and the experience of not having any overdubs, which I think helped us grow a lot,
Uh-huh.
certainly in my playing and my sonic vision. Now going back the other direction and going, okay, well, what else would you like to hear on there? So that kind of it keeps it fresh. I think that's important to change your direction like that, to keep going in new directions that challenge yourself.
Sure. So, what's the writing process like for you guys then? If you're thinking trio, or you might expand the sounds a little, how did you write
Yeah.
the tunes for this record?
Well, and like I said initially, all these songs were kind of composed that they could, and they work as a trio. Obviously when we tour, we're not carrying any additional musicians, and we're not using backing tracks,
Yeah.
but they all work in a strictly trio setting. So that's how they were written. I imagine myself kind of continuing on from Resolution. I think in the writing of these songs, it just so happened we kind of went a different direction once we got into the studio, but they work in that way. So I wasn't necessarily thinking, oh, I'll write this with a rhythm guitar track in mind. It was really meant to be self-sufficient with just the three of us. And I tend to primarily be the main writer in the band. Though Mike's a great songwriter. He writes wonderful solo pieces for the bass that he just has some amazing compositions. But I'm the one for the trio, normally bringing things in and then just kind of throwing them up to the band. And what I learned early on is that if you have great players around you, just let them do what they do naturally.
Hmm.
And I may have a specific vision for a particular drum groove or a bass note here and there, and I'm quick to offer that if I'm not getting what I want. But normally, if you've got great players, man, you're gonna get the best results by letting them do what they do naturally. Rely on their instincts. If you trust those ears and you trust their abilities on the instrument, and it's I've been playing with Mike and and Mitch initially since 1988. So there's a huge depth of understanding of, our what our musical backgrounds are, which are we're all straight up rockers, but then studied every other style and played every other style, jazz, etc., classical. We all have this really well-rounded background, but very much in addition to the rock foundation. So we're rockers at heart, but with all the study and abilities and all these different styles, it gives the music, I think, a bit more depth and a bit more personality in addition to whatever our main rock influences might be.
Yeah, cool. Are you tracking all together? It sounds very live and vibey.
Yeah, well, that's always the case. With the last three records, we do as much live as possible. But what ends up happening is once we get the bass and drums to where we think it's great, we'll probably move on and go to the next track. And then it's up to me and Mike to come back in later and address the guitar situation and say, okay, are we happy with the performance, happy with the tone, or do you want to spend more time? And normally, we'll start really tone questing and auditioning singers, as we like to call it, meaning what's going to be the main melody on, guitar, what sound is that, what guitar is that, what amp combination, what pedals, so just kind of trying to find the best voice for that particular tune and whatever vibe and mood we're going for.
Just going back to the composition side of things,
Yeah.
your guitar playing approach, it does sound very much like you've got that trio in mind. I'm noticing lots of like open strings and double stops and
yes, yeah.
I'm digging some of the tunes. Just have these big chord kind of passages that there could be a melody, but the chords are sort of implying them, and then you move back into a single note line. So that's all quite intentional, I guess, in the trio idea.
Well, yeah, like very much so. Like I say, the songs were composed with kind of that in mind, thinking it was going to be another trio record, even though it did end up having some overdubs.
Yeah, sure.
So I guess I'm kind of in a mode where I like to write in that regard. Though the idea of doing more of a Jeff Beck approach is very, enticing as well. Like get with a good keyboard player, and like I do actually with when I'm working with Simon Phillips, I can be more in that role where there's great keyboard foundation and great rhythm section. So I can be more of just a single note soloist instead of thinking more chordally and compositionally along the way.
Okay, cool. Hey, talking about keys, who played keys on the album? Because I've got it on iTunes, and I'm wearing out my iTunes copy if that's possible.
Okay.
But you don't get the liner notes, which is a bummer.
Yeah, I hate that. Yeah, I don't, and they didn't make it available or give me a possibility to be able to include those, which I would have loved to have done. It's a guy named Rich Martin. It's a guy we've known here in Dallas for a while. Played in a band called Shibboleth. That was a trio here in Dallas that was very '60s. Kind of influenced in their songwriting and their sounds, an instrumental trio. And I heard this record from this group, and there's lots of Farfisa, just really quirky, old, cool keyboard tones. I thought, well, if I ever need a keyboard player, that's going to be the guy. And then when it came time to some of the keyboard tracks that we had in mind, Mike Dane's studio, he's got a wonderful old B3 and a Wurlitzer. And Mike and I are capable enough, and we could have easily gone out there and played some stuff that we needed, but we thought, well, let's get a guy. And without me even mentioning this other guy, Rich, he threw out the same name. It just happened to be the guy I had in mind.
Nice.
So it worked out great. Yeah, so he came in on several different occasions whenever we got to the point of like, oh, I think we need some keyboards. Well, let's call Rich. And so he was always very, very handy in that way. And we'd have pretty specific ideas of what we might want. It's nice to have somebody that's patient enough to help you get to that place that you're hearing.
Yeah, the organs are great. They're all very supportive of the guitar parts, so there's not a lot of crazy stuff, but the tones are just beautiful. Those organs and
yeah, thank you. Yeah, we try to keep it as organic as possible with everything, all the recording process. It's all mixed. Mike's got an early '70s API board, and all the outboard gear, all vintage compressors, etc. A little bit of digital shenanigans going on, but as little as possible. So all the keyboards are the real genuine keyboards, and yeah, it's nice to have the real deal. Like the old Wurlitzer, we put through a couple of Fender Deluxes, Silverface Deluxes. Just has a certain bite to it, you're not going to get, or the Rhodes,
Yeah, those E-pianos, hey, through a guitar amp are always cool.
Oh, that sounds so good, yeah.
Hey, let's talk about some of the tunes. The title track, Theme from a Perfect World. Man, that's a journey. What's the thinking behind that?
Thinking behind that was that I wanted to tune. I was always enamored with the when I was a kid. I had the 45 of "Court of the Crimson King" by King Crimson.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of those epic tunes where it was like two sides of the 45. Part one and part two. So that's part of the influence, but the title is actually a thinly veiled reference to Todd Rundgren's Utopia.
Okay.
And there was a track on the first Utopia record. They were actually very much a prog band.
Yeah, yeah.
When we first started, it was more like Mahavishnu plays pop music in a way. And so there was the track called "Theme from Utopia," and it's the same kind of thing where it goes through these different moods and different sections. And so there's a lot of Rundgren influence on. That's really what the core of that song is based around. My love of all things Rundgren and Utopia. And there's very specific chord voicing, that are a nod of the hat to Todd, and and the guitar playing too. Some of his melodic solos are just a huge influence on me. So there's a lot of his influence on that track. A little bit of Who maybe.
Uh-huh.
So we weren't afraid to. Yeah, it's obviously 3 or 4 songs in one, and it kind of comes back to the theme eventually and recapitulates. So why not? Why not have a piece that goes through a few different movements and just kind of cobble it all together. And it's a blast to play. I love it.
All the sections are great. I love the rocking out riffy section. It's maybe the second or third last, and then you think the song's going to end, and then those big clean chords smash in for the new section. That's cool too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
In Winterland, you're doing some really interesting bending kind of stuff, a little bit in Ferenzi as well, I think. Is that a Jeff Beck kind of influence, perhaps?
I don't think it's necessarily from Jeff, because my love of Jeff kind of came pretty late.
Mm-hmm.
If you consider, I was more probably influenced by guys that he influenced, like Steve Lukather was a guy that bending for me. A lot of my bending comes from Steve and comes from Larry Carlton.
Okay, yep.
And Carlton was another big influence on Luke. So. My love of Jeff really spawned over the last decade and a half, maybe. I saw him live for the first time in '99, and that was a game-changing moment. It was because I was a fan of the records, but I wasn't always blown away. I liked Wired and There and Back and Blow by Blow. They're all classics, but what I eventually learned was it wasn't capturing what I saw him do live, whatever that was. And I was convinced at that point. I thought, you know what? There might be a certain energy that happens when a player like Jeff plays that maybe you can't capture in a recording. But then I was proven wrong when that record, Emotion and Commotion, came out. I really thought that's it. He finally captured what I experienced at that live show, and that depth of emotion that he was able to capture, in the guitar. Now that all that to go back to the bending, and I don't know that is really Jeff influenced, though I love what he's doing. It would have come from some other players that maybe he influenced. Like I say, because both Carlton and Lukather were two of my biggest longtime influences for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Nice. There's a really cool octave
Yeah.
solo in that tune. The octave art. What's creating that sound?
That's my G&I. There's a signature octave fuzz type thing that they made for me. It was called, I think it's called the Vintage Distortion Multi-Fuzz. And it does all these different things, but there's just the one setting. It's basically doing the Roger Meyer Octavia type tone. And I have one of those old Roger Meyer reissue, spaceship looking things, and it's a great pedal, but it's very volatile. But this particular pedal is the best version of that I found that I use live. And so that is one of my favorite things on the record too. It's an old 65 Strat on that song, and that coupled with that Octavia type tone into a couple old Marshalls, it just has a certain vibe to it. And I think the band really got a good energy on that track at that point of the song too.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a pretty cool tonal recipe. Strat, fuzz, Marshall. It's hard to beat.
Yeah, I think there's some history there.
There could be.
May have worked in the past, right?
Actually, one thing I love about the album, there's a real consistency in your tonality, which I think creates a unity. It's not like it's the same tone every track, but
right.
It sounds like you're listening to a band and the guy's just sitting on one guitar. But what's the case?
Yeah.
When you said you had got the Strat out, what other guitars did you use?
No, that's the thing is that the last couple of records have been almost exclusively my AT100, or 300. It's pretty much was sticking to my comfort zone. That's where working with Mike was kind of cool. Is that we love the sound I get with that guitar, and there's quite a few tunes that have that. But he was always keen, as well as working on the amp tones. But let's try a different guitar. What would this this SG Special sound like? And I had this Pete Townsend SG Special with P90s that I'd had forever, but never had used much. I thought this has got a cool tone, but so on the guitar you hear on the majority of Theme from a Perfect World is that Townsend SG Special with 12s on it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we strung it up with some heavier strings, so I couldn't keep it in tune with 10s.
Sure.
And I thought, how did Pete do this? The Live at Leeds tone is just one of the greatest live tones ever. And so I did some research and found out he had 12s on. So okay, that explains. He can dig in a bit. It's going to take it. And so sure enough, I put the heavier gauge strings on, and the guitar just came to life. I could keep it in tune, pretty much. Not like great, but and I kind of had to spend some time on the instrument because 12s are obviously a bit more cumbersome because I bend a lot. I mean, I live with bending. That's such a big part of my sound.
Yeah, sure.
I had to really figure out how I'm going to play this tune with that. But the tone won. I mean, we love this tone. So okay, here's what I'm doing. So I spent some time on that guitar and figured out how I was going to play it. But I like the result. There's the second verse you might call it. That's more of a neck pickup Strat, but the rest of it is all that SG Special. And there's some other Strat tracks. Like I say, the 65 is on Winterland and That Day Came. And there's a 1960 hardtail on Your Way, Sweet Soul. And Lift Us Up.
That's beautiful. That sort of neck pickup tone.
Yeah, I love that. I love that sound too. And that song, we knew we wanted that neck pickup kind of vintagey Strat tone, but we had a bunch of guitars in the studio. And we just weren't quite happy yet. Literally, we had 20 Strats in the studio. I mean, I've got a pretty decent collection of old stuff, not like great like vintage stuff, but I've got a lot of different Strats. Mike has a few. We had friends bringing in their best vintage Strat. We just couldn't find the tone, but it was a buddy of mine who's a luthier in town. Had a client that brought this 1960 hardtail in, and I think he recognized that he didn't even realize we were looking for this particular tone at the time. He just unsolicited called me up saying, "Hey, I've got this old Strat you might want to check out. He's cool if you want to borrow it." I'm like, "Oh hell yeah, bring it by." It just so happens we're auditioning Strat. So he brings his guitar over, and it wasn't even close. This guitar just had what we were looking for, and fortunately I haven't given it back yet. No, it just turns out the guy, was a collector and wasn't playing it that much, and was kind of happy that it went to a home where somebody's going to use it all the time. So we worked out a price for it, and I had to sell my kidney and my cats, but I got the guitar. I got the guitar.
Nice, nice.
No, so that got used on that track, and Lift Us Up, and the next voice you hear, that's all that 60 hardtail.
Welcome Home, the solo in that's really thick, that tone. What guitar's on that?
That's the original AT100. It's more of my standard kind of resolution signal path. That's an old 3-knob tube driver, TubeWorks tube driver into two, split with a Framptone AB box into two EP3 Maestro tape echoes, and then each of those feeding a different vintage Marshall.
Wow.
One's a 79 JMP and one's a 69 Super Lead, and they're both running loud and clean. So all the gains coming from the tube driver.
Oh, okay, yeah, into the front.
Yeah.
That's nice. Were you tracking that loud? You can hear the notes just catching the feedback.
Yeah, that was one of the only tracks I did standing out in the cutting room.
Ah, okay.
Not recommendable with the amount of. I had headphones on, of course, but. Yeah, with all you need to be in the room, I was like, oh my God, I don't think my ears can take this. But it was worth it. We got a couple of nice feedbacky notes, as you could tell, and the speakers are just about ready to rip. You could hear it a couple of spots. It gets a little grainy, but that's a good vibe. We need to keep that.
That's so cool. Yeah, you can totally feel like you're standing in the room for that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So many good tunes. Sanctuary. That's a great tune.
Thank you.
You got that dotted eighth note delay in the front. What pedal or effect are you using?
Yeah, that's a straight up. I have a white AT100 with a rosewood fingerboard, and it's the rosewood board with the tremolo set up slightly floating, and I've got that running. I think it's just my Carl Martin compressor into the front of two Lone Star combos, Mesa Boogie Lone Star combos, and that's my timeline. That's my timeline Strymon Echo.
Cool.
That I got set up exactly like you said, dotted eighth quarter note. Generally around 500 and 375, but just depending on where I've got the tempo set up.
Sure.
But yeah, the kind of dotted eighth feel, and that kind of put some chorusing on the repeats to kind of give it that out of tune tape echo vibe, and you're off and running. But yeah, I do space that it creates on there. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Then you guys smash into like a seven section. Bit more.
Whatever. Yeah, it was just me trying to write like a Who section, It just sounds like a bit of Who fun there.
Oh, totally. And Mike, the bass part in that section's awesome.
Yeah, isn't that great? Yeah, he just has a wonderful sense, man. I rarely ever have to direct him. We just know each other's playing so well, and he's such a great bassist ear for what to do to support what I'm doing. Knows how to. He once made an analogy of him being like the aircraft carrier, and I'm taking off from there. You know what I mean? He's kind of like that supportive bass there. So yeah, no, he's just got a great rock and roll sense. that's the cool thing that I like about the band so much is that, you know, we've all played so many different styles of music, but we started off as rock and roll or so. But it gives us some dynamic and the ability to play that intro and the middle section and have it really speak. But then by the time you get to the chorus, we're the Foo Fighters, you know.
You know what? I totally thought Foo Fighters when I heard that.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. They're my favorite new group, Matt. That's an old guy talking, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've loved Dave Grohl from the start, obviously from the Nirvana days, but just from that first Foo Fighters record, which I think that's all him playing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
His sensibility, I love his songwriting, and we think melodically somewhat similarly. He's always revolving around the third so much of the chord. At least that's what I noticed in his playing, and that's where I live melodically too. So we share that. So that tune is very much written with that energy in mind. I like that.
Yeah. So with your harmonic sensibility, there's a lot of straight ahead rocking and big Who kind of chords. That's awesome. But a couple of tracks here, you've got some really beautiful changes. I think that Day You Came, that's maybe the most harmonically shifting piece, I think.
Yeah, it may be. I am a fan of the common tone modulation or whatever. I like going different places when I can. But yeah, that's thank you. I like that song a lot. Compositionally, I guess it kind of starts. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really analyzed it yet, but it does move around a bit.
Sure. So one of my favorite parts in that tune, you do this eighth note kind of build up with the band on these kind of swelling chords. That's cool. Have you got your guitar with you? I thought I heard you.
Yeah, I do. I usually have my office rig is right now. It's just my main AT100 into this old Korg Pandora into my computer speakers, but it's not a bad sound. Hold on 1 second. Get there. Can you hear that okay? I'm not sure what that sounds like.
I can. Your guitar into a digital box, into a computer still sounds awesome. That's cool.
Losing a little bit of top end. Hold on. Sometimes I get a tone here. I wish I could get that live. Actually, it sounds all right. But anyway, so you had a question. You want to demonstrate it, or?
Yeah, are you able to play those chords? I know you set up for a dirty kind of tone, but
okay, that's part of those. Here, I'll play my full out tone if you can hear it. I guess very distorted, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that would have been similar to the tone that I would have had set up. And what I do is I've drawn the volume almost all the way off. So it's really a gained up tone, but with my guitar rolled way down.
Cool.
And if I'm thinking correctly, that would have been a Keeley modded blues driver. Yeah. Probably into a couple of deluxes, I think, on that one.
Okay. That's a big part of your clean sound, isn't it? A blues driver, which is somewhat of a surprise.
Well, it is. It would have sounded like that cranked full up, but when you dial that volume down. And so what it does is it sounds like a gained up Marshall, basically. And then you roll your volume back to clean up the tone. So that middle section, you probably back the gain down slightly. Okay, so if I do that passage, it's like a D with a sharp 11 and B minor 6. E major 7, B9, B minor 9. It's like a D add 9. G Lydian. That top melody now.
Yeah, beautiful.
He made it to that F. And then, so the melodies, it's implied because it goes, And it resolves into that next chord note. I heard Brian Wilson would do that a lot on some of his mid-'60s Pet Sounds Smile era stuff. It was just chilling, how he is able to do that. Like there's some parts of Surf's Up that employ that same kind of voice leading, and it just drives me crazy. So that's completely where that comes from. Whether it was conscious at the songwriting moment or not, I don't remember. But I can look at it now and go, oh, that's Brian Wilson. That's exactly what that is. Yeah, so
That's cool. There's definitely a 60s sensibility, I think, in some of your harmonic movement. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, there's the Beatles record you've done, so it's no
Sure.
secret you're a fan, but of that kind of
No, no.
stuff. But the next voice you hear, like the outro, there's that long sort of, I think it's like a minor 4 chord back to the 1 chord.
Yes. What happened? Hold on. It's I have to think through the song here for a second. So I know it's next voice you hear. That's the evil. Right. Okay. And where does it go? That's it. I think of it as like a B major to G major 7 to E minor. Yeah, there's that long outro. Sorry, it took me a minute to get there to realize what the changes were. So I'm thinking of three chords: B major to that to the B, the G major 7. So that's basically going from flattening that D sharp to D natural,
Yeah.
and then the minor, with like a minor 9, E minor 9. Yeah. So what was the question around that? What?
Oh, there's more of just an idea that in the end of the song you've got, I think it's maybe it's a minor 4 chord.
Oh,
It's just got a 60-ish kind of melancholy to it.
yes. Yeah. Oh, no doubt. Yeah. That last. Yeah. Well, I mean, so much of that. I'm sure, whether I was conscious of it or not, that's my foundation. Is everything 60s and 70s, really.
Yeah, awesome.
All the stuff you grow up with, and just kind of have continued to pour over ever since. Just still going back and getting beauty from that era for sure.
Yeah, cool. So getting back to the writing, which we seem to keep talking about, are you writing these melodies by yourself, or is there any times when you're jamming out with the band when stuff comes out?
Well, there was more stuff on the Resolution record that was written kind of in a band jam situation.
Okay.
Songs like Helipad or Redemption or Beware Dark Days. I think some of those were born from some jams with Mitch and Mike, but this record was primarily me bringing the material in and developing it from there. But I generally, melodically, I've been pretty responsible for the majority of the composing over time. And some things do happen spontaneously, no doubt. I mean, I'm always inspired by the way the band plays, and we jam like every sound check. There's always like some groove that'll happen, and I instantly hear all these melodies, and so we've got hundreds and hundreds of snippets of unfinished songs that, in the moment we're like, oh, we got to finish that. There's only so much time, I suppose, but I always enjoy going back and finding those snippets and going, okay, we got to finish that one, or here's a good idea.
Yeah, cool.
So that may be the record if I get around to finishing some of those ideas up.
Awesome. Now you're in between tours pretty much. Hey, you're heading to Asia in a week or so.
We go, I guess, the 8th, which is coming up very soon, next Tuesday.
Cool. And what are you doing there?
Oh, we do. We start in Seoul, Korea, and I think we go on to Taiwan, Shenzhen in China, and Hong Kong, and then 4 nights in Tokyo. So it's about 2 weeks altogether. Mainly gigs with the ATB, but there's a couple of guitar clinics thrown in for good measure. And but I look forward to it, and that's going to be it for the year. I've kind of made the decision just to make sure I'm home for all the holidays, which I usually am, but it's been a busy year, so I want to be home with the family for the next few months here, and give me a chance to get caught up on the things in the studio. I've got a new website I'm developing that's going to be a subscription lesson site, so there's going to be a lot lot of material available on that where I'm just basically going to detail every song I've recorded.
Wow, that sounds big.
Yeah, so yeah, it is. I just break it down into like a play along situation, but then kind of highlight the difficult bits and try to give some tutorials on the thought processes behind all of it and some of the instructional things that would go along with that. So, but yeah, I've been wanting to do this forever, but just haven't been home long enough to get any momentum to get it done. So that's what the goal is here in the next few months. We're going to get that up and running, and then hopefully get out and do some more gigs in the States and elsewhere. Got to get the band to Australia at some point.
Absolutely. Well, Asia, you take
Not far.
Take a right-hander and you're almost here.
That's right. That's what they asked Ringo in Hard Day's Night. How do you find America? We turn left at Greenland. Yeah. I still find that very funny. But that's me. But yeah. Well, we got to work that in. I know we've got some friends over there. Got to go visit, man.
Yeah. Oh, we would love to have you down here and
where are you, man? Where do you live?
Well, I'm in Sydney, Australia. So
okay. Yeah.
East Coast. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I've been there a few times. And love. We did a video with Olivia there at the Opera House.
Yeah. Well, you were Olivia Newton-John's MD for many years.
About 15 years, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, no, it was amazing. She's just an awesome person, and one of my dearest friends. So, that it was just at a point where she was starting to do a bunch of the residency gigs in Vegas, and I was getting busier with my group and Simon Phillips's group. So there's starting to be a lot more scheduling conflicts. So it was just kind of time.
Sure.
And she certainly, understood and supported my decision, but. So, hopefully we'll do some more stuff in the future, but for now I've been happy to be doing my own thing exclusively for sure. But she's a wonderful, wonderful artist who really just an incredible singer and works really hard at her craft, but also an amazing person, major philanthropist and, cancer awareness proponent. And yeah, so just very inspiring for me as a person.
Wow, that's cool. That's great. Yeah, she's well loved here, of course.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hey, cool thing about that gig, you got to play the Steve Lukather solo in Physical.
Yes, I did. And I played it quite well, I think.
I think you nailed it.
On some days. No, that was of course a fun song to do. Yeah.
That's cool. Can we talk briefly about another of our favourite Australians, Daniel Steinhardt?
Oh, yeah. He may be my favorite Australian. Well, Tommy Emmanuel and Olivia are up there,
Sure.
I'd be hard-pressed to pick a favorite Australian because I just love the Australian people in general. All my travels there, it was like, I would live here. This is I totally resonate with these people, and the vibe is it's just so great, man. Just everybody, and all my buddies that when I first started playing with Olivia, the whole band was the John Farnham Band.
Oh, okay, cool.
Stuart Fraser on guitar and Chong Lim and
nice. Angus.
Angus on the drums and Joe, and so yeah, it was just amazing people. We got on so great. We did 2 months of dates in the States, and then within a day, I just felt like I was in the band forever. We just felt like close friends, and just laughed our butts off the whole time.
Nice.
Oh, just some of my favorite people on the planet. So. But yes, Daniel, oh man, I've been using his gig rig for a while. Then we ended up meeting, I think for the first time, maybe in Germany. We'd just gotten on tour with Simon Phillips, and somebody stepped on my power supply where it connects with the circuit board, and it broke the board internally, so I couldn't get it fixed. So Daniel offered to fly over to Germany to fix it for me, and he did. He said, "Well, I'm a big Simon fan, and it'd be great." So anyway, he comes over, and we got on like wildfire, of course, and just became great friends and just had a great laugh together. And so now, we've hung many times, and of course, you see the video on YouTube of him building my pedal board for me.
Yeah, that's great.
Just what a brilliant guy. And excellent musician on top of all that. I love his band, Tin Spirits.
Yeah, well, I think they're just about to tour Japan. So good stuff going on there.
Going now, and I was hoping I was going to be there because we're there for 4 nights. I thought maybe we'd be in the same town, but it didn't pan out. I think he's going to be there before me.
Oh, okay.
But no, just, again, one of my favorite guys. Just so incredibly deep as far as his knowledge of pop music and guitar. Just a good guy and a great musician, and just, nobody else I'd rather hang with. Just good folks. So I look forward to doing more with him in the future.
Well, Andy, thank you so much for your time today. It's been
No
awesome to I've been absorbing the album for the last few weeks, and to actually get to talk to
Really,
you about it's been really cool.
I really appreciate it, man. Thanks for checking it out and helping spread the word about it. Yeah, no, we're proud of the tunes, and we worked hard on getting some good sounds and trying to keep it organic as possible. So it's nice to know that it's resonating with some out there. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Cool. And for people to keep up on what you're doing with, say, the new videos or any other gigs, what's the best way for people to do that?
Well, certainly AndyTimmons.com. We've got a new website that's just up and running, and certainly on the Facebook page is the Andy Timmons Official is my main page. So that's the best way. If they want to sign up there's a mailing list on the AndyTimmons.com. They can sign up, and we're being better about getting some more frequent newsy emails out there for folks. So we'll keep in touch with you guys, keep in touch with us, and a lot on the horizon, lots more to come real soon. So
cool, that's excellent.
Yeah, man, keep going. I'll try to get down to Australia ASAP.
Do it, man, do it. Yes.
I hope so.
Well, hey, thanks again, Andy. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time, man. We'll talk to you soon. Be in touch.
Yes, for sure. See ya.
Okay, cheers. Bye.
All right, that's the interview with Andy Timmons. How cool. What a guy. Really good guy. And the album is fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. And I really need to thank Andy for granting me permission to use some excerpts from the album to help demonstrate some of the stuff we were talking about. And how cool Andy jamming along and just demoing and talking through some of his stuff on his guitar there. That was super cool. Thanks, Andy. Love your work. And yes, please come to Australia. And wherever you are in the world, I hope Andy gets to your corner as well. All right, well, hey, thanks for joining us on the Guitar Speak podcast. Now, listen, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can subscribe and hear more interviews like this by subscribing at iTunes or Stitcher, or if you go to guitarspeakpodcast.libsyn.com, you can get to all of our past interviews there. We've talked to people like Gretchen Menn about hanging out with Steve Morse, about doing her own solo stuff. Sarah Lipstate, the noise maker, ambient master. She is amazing. She talks about touring with Iggy Pop, playing the London Royal Albert Hall. We spoke to, who else did we speak to? Jack Thamarat, really huge guitar presence around Southeast Asia, Yamaha endorser. From Australia, we've talked to guys like Bob Spencer from the Angels and Skyhooks. Talked to Randall Waller about touring the world with Shania Twain, Aussie guitarist, on the gigantic world stage. That was a great interview in the last couple of episodes. Maton Guitars, iconic Australian guitar builders celebrating 70 years. We spoke to David Steadman, the general manager. We spoke to Daniel Steinhardt. How could I forget? Episode 10, as you heard Andy talking about his relationship, friendship with Daniel. Daniel runs the Giggery company, which build these state-of-the-art switching systems and heaps of other super cool stuff. Man, Daniel is just a genius and an incredible player. So interview, episode 10, we spoke to Daniel. So check that out too. All right, I won't keep going on, but you get the idea. There's good stuff in the archives. Get to it. All right, my name is Matt Wakeling. I'm out of here, but last thing, hey, thank you. Thank you for listening into the Guitar Speak podcast. It's really my pleasure to bring these interviews to you, and it's a great thrill to know people all around the world are enjoying them. All right, thanks again. We'll see you next time on the Guitar Speak podcast. Bye now.